Dr. Elena Vasquez had been working the night shift at the Quantum Resonance Laboratory for 3 years, but she had never seen anything like what appeared on her monitor at 3:47 a.m. The normally steady green lines that tracked dimensional stability across 17 different frequency bands suddenly erupted into chaotic red spikes, each peak higher than anything in the facility's 40-year history. The coffee mug slipped from her trembling fingers, shattering against the concrete floor as alarms began wailing throughout the underground complex. Emergency lighting bathed the laboratory in an eerie crimson glow, while automated systems locked down every entrance and exit. Elena's training kicked in as she rapidly typed commands into her workstation, trying to isolate the source of the disturbance. "Control, this is Lab 7, she spoke into her headset, her voice barely audible over the piercing alarms. "I'm showing massive quantum fluctuations across all monitored dimensions. Whatever just happened, it's bigger than anything we've recorded." Static filled her earpiece before Dr. Marcus Chen's voice crackled through from the main control room. "Elena, we're seeing the same readings here. The entire facility is in lockdown. Are you injured? Can you reach the emergency protocols manual?" Elena was already pulling the thick red binder from its secured shelf. The manual contained procedures that every scientist hoped they would never need to use. As she flipped through pages marked with warnings in multiple languages, her eyes stopped on a section she had read only once during her orientation training. The page header read, "Unprecedented Dimensional Breach. Protocol Omega." Below that, in smaller text that seemed to pulse with importance, "If readings exceed level 9 on the Hartwell scale, immediately contact the Department of Metaphysical Security. Under no circumstances should standard containment procedures be attempted." Elena's hands shook as she checked her monitor again. The readings weren't just exceeding level 9. They were off the scale entirely. The quantum fluctuations showed patterns that shouldn't exist according to every law of physics she had studied. More disturbing was what the patterns resembled. They looked almost like a signal, as if something was trying to communicate across the dimensional barriers. "Marcus, I need you to patch me through to Director Harrison immediately," Elena said, her voice steadying despite the chaos around her. "And pull up the restricted files on Project Threshold. I think we're dealing with something that goes way beyond our normal research parameters." The laboratory fell silent as the alarms suddenly stopped. In the eerie quiet that followed, Elena could hear her own heartbeat and the gentle hum of the quantum monitoring equipment. But there was something else. A low-frequency vibration that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Dr. Harrison's voice came through the intercom system, addressing the entire facility. "All personnel are to remain at their current positions until further notice. This is not a drill. We are implementing Condition Black protocols effective immediately." Elena had never heard of Condition Black, but the gravity in Harrison's voice made her stomach clench with fear. As she waited for further instructions, she noticed something impossible on her secondary monitor. The quantum signature readings were forming patterns that looked suspiciously like mathematical equations that described dimensional travel. 30 minutes later, Director Harrison arrived in Lab 7, accompanied by 2 individuals Elena had never seen before. The woman wore a dark suit and carried herself with military precision, while the man dressed in what appeared to be robes made from a material that seemed to shift colors in the laboratory lighting. "Dr. Vasquez," Harrison began, his usually confident demeanor replaced by visible anxiety, "I need you to walk us through exactly what you observed tonight. Leave nothing out, no matter how insignificant it might seem." Elena described the sudden spike in readings, the formation of patterns in the quantum signatures, and the strange vibration that followed the alarm shutdown. As she spoke, the woman in the suit took notes on a device Elena didn't recognize, while the robed man studied the monitor displays with an expression of growing concern. "Show them the Hartwell readings," Harrison instructed. Elena pulled up the data logs, highlighting the massive spikes that had triggered the emergency protocols. The robed man stepped closer to the screen, his eyes widening as he examined the patterns. "Agent Morrison," he addressed the woman. "These signatures are consistent with what our archives describe. We're looking at evidence of an unauthorized dimensional transit." Agent Morrison nodded grimly. "Dr. Vasquez, what I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels. The research conducted at this facility serves a dual purpose. While you and your colleagues believe you're studying quantum mechanics for energy applications, this laboratory actually monitors dimensional barriers that protect our reality. Elena felt the world tilt around her. Protect our reality from what? The robed man, who had introduced himself as Keeper Aldrich, spoke in a voice that carried centuries of knowledge. From entities that exist in parallel dimensions, Dr. Vasquez. For millennia, certain natural laws have prevented beings from one dimension from crossing into another without proper authorization from what you might call cosmic authorities. You're talking about aliens? Elena asked, struggling to process the information. Not exactly, Agent Morrison replied. We're talking about humans. Humans from parallel versions of Earth who have developed the technology to breach dimensional barriers. The problem is that such crossings were forbidden by ancient agreements that predate recorded history. When someone violates those agreements, it triggers alarms across multiple dimensions. Elena stared at the monitor, watching the quantum patterns shift and flow like living things. You're saying that someone from another Earth just broke into our dimension? Keeper Aldrich nodded solemnly. According to these readings, approximately 4 hours ago, at least 3 individuals made an unauthorized crossing into our reality. They used technology that we thought was purely theoretical. More concerning is that they seem to have bypassed all the natural safeguards that should have prevented such a transit. Where are they now? Elena asked. Agent Morrison checked her device. Unknown. The crossing point appears to have been somewhere over the Pacific Ocean. But the individuals could be anywhere on the planet by now. Our satellite network is searching for quantum residue that might indicate their current location. Director Harrison stepped forward. Dr. Vasquez, as of this moment, you're being temporarily reassigned to a classified project. Your expertise with quantum monitoring systems is needed to help track these intruders and understand how they managed to break through barriers that have been in place since before human civilization began. Elena's mind reeled with questions, but one stood out above the others. What happens if we can't find them? Keeper Aldrich exchanged a meaningful look with Agent Morrison before answering. According to the ancient texts, unauthorized dimensional crossings destabilize the barriers between realities. If these individuals aren't found and return to their origin dimension within 72 hours, the barriers could begin to collapse permanently. And what would that mean for us? Elena pressed. It would mean that our dimension could be invaded by entities from countless parallel realities, Morrison explained. Some of those realities contain humans who have developed in very different ways than we have. Others might contain things that aren't human at all. The laboratory fell silent as the implications sank in. Elena looked at the monitor where the quantum patterns continued their mysterious dance, realizing that what she had initially thought was a equipment malfunction was actually evidence of an event that could fundamentally alter the nature of reality itself. Keeper Aldrich began pulling ancient-looking books from a bag Elena hadn't noticed him carrying. Dr. Vasquez, I need you to help me correlate these readings with historical precedents. The last time something like this happened was over 3,000 years ago, and the consequences were significant. As Elena opened the first book, she was surprised to find that despite its ancient appearance, the text was written in modern English. The pages seemed to glow faintly as she read, and the words described events that sounded like science fiction but were presented as historical fact. The book spoke of dimensional guardians who maintained the barriers between realities, of cosmic courts that established laws governing interdimensional travel, and of catastrophic wars fought across multiple versions of Earth when those laws were violated. This is all real? Elena asked, looking up from the book. Every word, Morrison confirmed. The organization I work for has been monitoring dimensional stability for over 2 centuries. We've always known this day would come, but we hoped it would be much further in the future. Elena turned back to her monitors and noticed something new in the quantum patterns. Hidden within the chaotic signatures were what appeared to be coordinates, specific locations on Earth where dimensional energy was concentrating. Look at this, she called to the others, highlighting the coordinate patterns. The quantum residue isn't randomly distributed. It's focusing on specific geographical points. Keeper Aldrich studied the coordinates, and his face went pale. These locations correspond to ancient sites of dimensional weakness. If the intruders are aware of these points, they might be trying to create permanent gateways between dimensions. Agent Morrison was already speaking into her communication device, calling for immediate surveillance of each coordinate location. We need teams at Stonehenge, the Pyramids of Giza, Machu Picchu, and every other location on that list within the next 6 hours. Elena continued analyzing the data streams, discovering more patterns buried within the quantum signatures. It appeared that the dimensional crossing had been carefully planned and executed with knowledge of Earth's dimensional geography that should have been impossible for outsiders to obtain. "There's something else," Elena said, her voice tight with concern. "These quantum patterns suggest that the crossing wasn't a one-time event. Someone is preparing to open much larger gateways. The energy signatures are building towards something massive." The robed man closed his eyes and seemed to be listening to something none of the others could hear. When he opened them, his expression was grave. "The cosmic authorities have taken notice of what's happening here. They're preparing to intervene directly, but such intervention comes with a price." "What kind of price?" Director Harrison asked. "If the authorities conclude that our dimension has been irreversibly compromised, they will seal it off permanently. We would be cut off from all other realities, including the parallel dimensions that provide the quantum energy our modern technology depends on." Elena felt a chill run down her spine as she realized the full scope of what they were facing. Not only were unauthorized visitors potentially threatening their reality, but the response to that threat could fundamentally change human civilization. As if responding to her thoughts, new alarms began sounding throughout the facility. This time, however, the tone was different, deeper, and more ominous. Elena's monitors erupted with readings that defied comprehension as dimensional barriers across the planet began showing signs of stress. "It's starting," Keeper Aldrich whispered, his hands trembling as he traced symbols in one of his ancient books. "The cascade effect has begun." The cascade effect that Keeper Aldrich had warned about manifested first as subtle changes that most people didn't notice. Streetlights flickered in patterns that had no explanation. Radio signals carried voices speaking languages that didn't exist. Satellite navigation systems began reporting locations that weren't on any map. But in the quantum resonance laboratory, Dr. Elena Vasquez watched as reality itself began to show cracks. "Agent Morrison, we have a problem," Elena announced, her voice cutting through the tense atmosphere that had settled over Lab 7. "The dimensional stress readings aren't just increasing. They're spreading in a specific pattern. It's like watching dominoes fall. But each domino is a fundamental force of physics." Morrison moved to Elena's workstation, studying the display that showed dimensional stability measurements from monitoring stations around the globe. Red zones were spreading outward from the original breach point, creating an expanding web of instability that stretched across continents. Keeper Aldrich looked up from his ancient texts, his face etched with worry. "Dr. Vasquez, can you project the expansion rate? I need to know how much time we have before the instability reaches critical mass." Elena's fingers flew across her keyboard, running calculations that would have been impossible just days earlier. The quantum monitoring system had somehow evolved, displaying data in ways that seemed to anticipate her needs. "Based on current progression rates, we have maybe 18 hours before the dimensional barriers become so weak that anything could cross over." Director Harrison paced behind them, speaking in hushed tones to someone on his secure phone. When he finished the call, his expression was grim. "I've just received reports from our monitoring stations worldwide. 3 hours ago, a research team at CERN detected impossible particle behavior in their accelerator. 2 hours ago, the Atacama Observatory recorded radio signals from empty space that match no known astronomical phenomena. And 30 minutes ago, the International Space Station reported seeing lights moving beneath the Earth's surface." "Lights beneath the surface?" Elena asked, pausing in her analysis. Morrison nodded. "The dimensional barriers don't just separate parallel realities horizontally. They also create layers of existence that occupy the same space, but at different vibrational frequencies. When the barriers weaken, you can sometimes see through to other layers." Elena tried to process this information while continuing her work. The quantum patterns on her monitors were becoming increasingly complex, forming mathematical structures that seemed to pulse with their own intelligence. As she watched, the patterns began arranging themselves into what looked like a map. "Look at this," she said, highlighting the emerging structure. "The quantum fluctuations are organizing themselves into geographical markers. It's like someone is using our dimensional instability as a communication system." Keeper Aldrich approached the monitor, his eyes widening as he recognized something in the patterns. "These symbols. They're not human in origin. They're using the same mathematical language described in the Treaty of Convergence." "The Treaty of what?" Elena asked. "An agreement signed eons ago between dimensional entities to establish rules for interdimensional contact," Morrison explained. "The treaty established designated crossing points, protocols for authorized transit, and penalties for violations. What you're seeing on your monitor appears to be a formal communication from the treaty enforcers." Elena enhanced the display, revealing more details in the quantum message. The mathematical symbols were indeed forming coherent patterns that resembled text, though reading it required understanding quantum mathematics at a level she had never imagined possible. "It's a warning," she said slowly, translating the mathematical language as best she could. "They're saying that the unauthorized crossing has violated fundamental cosmic law. The individuals who crossed over are being given 12 hours to surrender themselves for return to their origin dimension." "And if they don't?" Director Harrison asked. Elena continued reading the quantum text, her face growing pale. "If they don't comply, the treaty enforcers will implement what they call dimensional quarantine procedures. Our entire reality will be isolated from all other dimensions permanently." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Morrison was the first to speak. "We need to find these intruders, and we need to find them fast. Dr. Vasquez, can your systems track them more precisely?" Elena was already working on refining her search parameters. The quantum monitoring system seemed to be learning from her inputs, automatically adjusting its algorithms to provide more detailed information. "I'm getting something," she said after several minutes of intensive analysis. "The quantum residue left by their crossing is concentrated in 3 distinct locations." A world map appeared on the main display screen, showing 3 pulsing red dots. One in the Swiss Alps, one in the Amazon rainforest, and one in Antarctica. "Switzerland makes sense," Morrison said, studying the locations. "There are several dimensional research facilities in that region. But why the Amazon and Antarctica?" Keeper Aldrich consulted one of his books, running his finger down columns of text that seemed to shift and change as he read. "According to the historical records, these locations correspond to ancient dimensional anchor points, places where the barriers between realities are naturally strongest. If someone wanted to establish permanent gateways between dimensions, these would be ideal locations." Elena discovered something else in the quantum data that made her heart race. The energy signatures at each location are different. It's not 3 people working together. It's 3 separate individuals with different technologies and possibly different goals. "Different goals?" Harrison asked. "The Switzerland location shows energy patterns consistent with scientific research equipment. But the Amazon site is generating readings that look more like, well, like weapons technology." "And the Antarctica location?" Elena paused, double-checking her readings. "Antarctica is showing patterns I don't recognize at all. The quantum signature is unlike anything in our database." "Oh," Morrison was already coordinating with her teams. "I'm sending specialized units to each location. Dr. Vasquez, I need you to maintain constant monitoring of all 3 sites. If any of them show signs of increased activity, we need immediate notification." As Elena established dedicated monitoring channels for each location, new alarms began sounding throughout the facility. This time, the alert wasn't coming from their own systems. It was being broadcast from somewhere outside normal space-time. "The cosmic authorities are responding," Keeper Aldrich announced, his voice filled with awe and terror. "They're manifesting directly into our dimensional space." Elena's monitors exploded with readings that surpassed anything they had recorded. The quantum fluctuations were so intense that the laboratory's lights began strobing, and the air itself seemed to vibrate with otherworldly energy. On the main display screen, an image began forming that defied description. It appeared to be a courtroom, but one that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Beings of pure energy sat in judgment, their forms shifting between geometric patterns and something almost recognizably humanoid. A voice spoke that seemed to come from everywhere at once, translating itself into English through some form of universal communication. Representatives of Earth Dimension 477 Alpha, you are hereby notified that your dimensional space has been compromised by unauthorized entities from Dimension 477 Beta. Per the Treaty of Convergence, you have 8 hours to surrender these entities for return to their origin point. Elena found herself standing without realizing she had moved. We're trying to locate them, she called out to the beings on the screen. Can you tell us more about who they are, or why they're here? The cosmic authorities seemed surprised by her direct address. One of the energy beings focused its attention on her, and Elena felt her mind touched by an intelligence vast beyond human comprehension. Elena Vasquez of Earth 477 Alpha. The being communicated directly into her thoughts. The entities in question are versions of yourself and your colleagues from a parallel Earth where dimensional travel was developed centuries ago. They have come seeking something that does not exist in their reality. Elena's knees nearly buckled as the full implications hit her. Versions of ourselves? The lead entity shares your quantum signature, the cosmic authority continued. She calls herself Dr. Elena Vasquez Prime. Her companions are designated as Dr. Marcus Chen Prime and Director Harrison Prime. They seek access to your dimension's unique quantum resonance frequency, which their reality lost due to a catastrophic experiment performed in their version of this facility. Morrison stepped forward. What kind of catastrophe? Images began appearing on the monitoring screens, scenes from another Earth where dimensional experiments had gone wrong. Elena saw versions of herself and her colleagues working desperately to prevent the collapse of their reality's quantum infrastructure. She watched their Earth slowly dying as the fundamental forces that held matter together began to fail. Their dimension is failing, the cosmic authority explained. They seek to use your quantum resonance to repair their reality, but doing so would damage your dimensional barriers beyond repair. This is why the crossing was unauthorized and why their actions constitute a threat to cosmic stability. Elena studied the images of her alternate self, seeing the desperation in Elena Prime's face. There has to be another way to help them, without destroying our reality. The Treaty of Convergence allows for no exceptions, the Cosmic Authority replied. Unauthorized crossings must be reversed. Regardless of motivation, you have 7 hours and 43 minutes remaining. The connection to the Cosmic Court ended abruptly, leaving the laboratory in relative quiet. Elena slumped into her chair, overwhelmed by what she had learned. So we're hunting ourselves, she said quietly. How are we supposed to track people who think exactly like we do? Morrison was already adapting her strategy. Actually, that might work in our favor. Dr. Vasquez, if you were desperate to save your reality and had access to advanced dimensional technology, what would you do? Elena considered the question, putting herself in her alternate self's position. I'd try to understand this dimension's quantum resonance frequency first. That means I'd need access to monitoring equipment and research data. The Switzerland location, Harrison said, understanding immediately. She's using the dimensional research facility there to analyze our quantum structure, which means the Amazon and Antarctica locations serve different purposes, Elena continued, following her own logic. If I were trying to implement a solution that involved transferring quantum energy between dimensions, I'd need massive power sources and a way to focus that energy precisely. Morrison nodded. The Amazon location could be using geothermal energy from deep underground, and Antarctica has unique electromagnetic properties due to the polar environment. Elena's monitors chimed with an urgent alert. The quantum signatures from all 3 locations were synchronizing, indicating that Elena Prime and her team were preparing to implement whatever plan they had developed. They're getting ready to make their move, Elena announced. Based on these energy patterns, I estimate we have less than 2 hours before they attempt some kind of massive quantum manipulation. Keeper Aldrich was furiously consulting his books, cross-referencing the energy signatures with historical accounts of dimensional disasters. If they succeed in connecting our quantum resonance to their failing dimension, it could create a feedback loop that destroys both realities. Or it could save both, Elena said quietly, surprising herself. There might be a way to stabilize both dimensions without violating cosmic law. Morrison turned to her sharply. What do you mean? Elena was already running calculations, using the quantum monitoring system's evolved capabilities to model different scenarios. What if we don't try to stop them? What if we help them find a solution that works within the framework of cosmic law? The cosmic authorities were very clear about the consequences, Harrison warned. They said unauthorized crossings must be reversed. Elena replied, her excitement growing as the mathematical models showed promising results. But they didn't say we couldn't authorize a crossing retroactively. The Treaty of Convergence must have provisions for emergency dimensional aid, or it wouldn't be such a comprehensive document. Keeper Aldrich looked up from his books, hope flickering in his ancient eyes. You're right. Article 7 of the treaty allows for emergency assistance between dimensions facing extinction-level quantum collapse. But implementing such assistance requires unanimous approval from cosmic authorities, and the requesting dimension must surrender all autonomous dimensional travel capabilities permanently. Elena stared at her monitors, watching the countdown to catastrophe tick away, knowing that the next few hours would determine the fate of not one, but two entire realities. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood before the quantum communication array that had been hastily constructed in Lab 7, knowing that the next few minutes would determine whether two entire realities would survive or perish. The cosmic authorities had given them one final chance to present their case, but the mathematical precision required to convince beings of pure energy demanded absolute perfection in both calculation and presentation. Agent Morrison, are your teams in position at all three locations? Elena asked, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were attempting. Morrison's voice crackled through the communication system from her mobile command center. Switzerland team is standing by. Amazon team reports they've made visual contact with the intruders. Antarctica team, well, they're reporting some very strange phenomena, but they're in position. Elena turned to Keeper Aldrich, who had spent the last hour preparing the formal petition that would be presented to the Cosmic Court. Are you certain the treaty language is correct? The ancient man nodded, though his hands trembled as he held the document. Article 7, Section 3, allows for emergency quantum assistance between dimensions, but it requires the requesting dimension to prove that their crisis poses a threat to overall dimensional stability. Your calculations must demonstrate that their quantum collapse could create cascade failures across multiple realities. Elena had run those calculations dozens of times, each result confirming her growing fear that the crisis was even worse than they had initially understood. Elena Prime's dimension wasn't just failing. It was creating quantum vacuum bubbles that were spreading to adjacent realities. Director Harrison, we need to establish contact with Elena Prime directly, Elena said. If we're going to petition the cosmic authorities on their behalf, she needs to agree to the terms of emergency assistance. Harrison activated the dimensional communication array, using quantum entanglement to establish a link with the Switzerland location where Elena Prime had set up her operations. The main display screen flickered to life, revealing a face that was unmistakably Elena's own, but aged by desperation and marked by the stress of watching her reality die. Elena Prime, Elena began, feeling surreal about addressing another version of herself. We know why you're here, and we want to help you, but not in the way you're planning. Elena Prime's eyes narrowed. Help us? Your dimension's quantum resonance could save my reality, but only if we can access it directly. Every moment we delay, more of my Earth disappears into quantum void, and if you proceed with your plan, both our realities will be destroyed, Elena replied firmly. But there's another way. The Treaty of Convergence allows for emergency assistance that could stabilize your dimension without damaging ours. Elena Prime laughed bitterly. The cosmic authorities? We tried petitioning them months ago. They deemed our situation an acceptable loss within dimensional statistical parameters. They won't help us. Elena held up the petition that Keeper Aldrich had prepared. "They'll help if we can prove that your quantum collapse threatens dimensional stability across multiple realities. And we can prove that, because it does." The screen split to show data from Elena's quantum monitoring systems, alongside readings from Elena Prime's portable dimensional analyzer. Elena Prime studied the information, her expression changing from skepticism to shock. "These cascade calculations," Elena Prime whispered. "You're showing quantum degradation spreading to at least 17 adjacent dimensions." 23 as of an hour ago, Elena confirmed. "Your quantum collapse isn't contained to your reality. It's creating vacuum bubbles that are spreading through the dimensional matrix like an infection. If we don't stabilize your dimension soon, it could trigger the collapse of hundreds of realities." Elena Prime conferred quickly with her team members, Dr. Chen Prime and Director Harrison Prime, who appeared at the edges of the screen. Elena could see the hope warring with desperation in their alternate selves' faces. "Even if that's true," Elena Prime said finally, "the cosmic authorities require the requesting dimension to surrender all dimensional travel technology permanently. That means my people would never be able to explore other realities again." "But your people would exist," Elena pointed out. "And there might be ways to develop dimensional observation technology that doesn't violate the treaty restrictions." Before Elena Prime could respond, new alarms began sounding throughout both facilities. The cosmic authorities were manifesting again, but this time their presence was far more powerful than before. The air in Lab 7 seemed to crystallize, and Elena felt the weight of cosmic attention focused on their small group. "Representatives of Earth Dimension 477 Alpha and refugees from Earth Dimension 477 Beta," the cosmic voice announced. "You have requested emergency session under Article 7 of the Treaty of Convergence. State your petition." Elena stepped forward, holding the mathematical proof she and Keeper Aldrich had prepared. As she began to speak, her words were automatically translated into the universal language of quantum mathematics that the cosmic authorities used for formal proceedings. "Honored authorities, we petition for emergency dimensional assistance for Earth Dimension 477 Beta under Article 7, Section 3 of the Treaty of Convergence. The quantum collapse affecting their reality poses an imminent threat to dimensional stability across multiple realities." Elena presented her calculations, showing how the quantum vacuum bubbles were spreading through the dimensional matrix. The cosmic authorities studied the mathematical proof with an intensity that made the air shimmer around Elena. "The mathematics are unexpected," one of the cosmic beings admitted. "We were not aware that the quantum collapse had achieved this level of dimensional penetration. However, granting emergency assistance requires unanimous approval from the Cosmic Council, and there are concerns about precedent." Elena felt her heart sink, but Elena Prime suddenly stepped forward on her side of the communication link. "Honored authorities, I wish to formally surrender myself and my team for violations of the Treaty of Convergence. We accept full responsibility for our unauthorized crossing and agree to all penalties, including permanent surrender of dimensional travel technology. We ask only that our reality's population be saved through emergency assistance." The cosmic authorities seemed surprised by this direct approach. Elena Vasquez Prime, of Dimension 477 Beta, your admission of guilt is noted. However, your surrender does not address the threat posed by the quantum cascade failure. Elena had an inspiration. "What if we combine the emergency assistance with a joint stabilization project? Both our realities working together under cosmic supervision could create a more stable solution than either reality working alone." Keeper Aldrich stepped forward, consulting his ancient texts. Article 7. Section 5 allows for joint dimensional projects when multiple realities face related threats. The quantum cascade affects both dimensions, so this could qualify. The cosmic authorities conferred among themselves using communication methods that caused reality itself to ripple around the laboratory. Finally, their spokesman returned his attention to the humans. "This proposal has merit, but it would require unprecedented cooperation between dimensional authorities and human populations. The joint project would operate under strict cosmic oversight, with any violation resulting in immediate dimensional quarantine for both realities." Elena looked at Elena Prime through the communication link, seeing her own determination reflected in her alternate self's face. "We accept," they said simultaneously. The cosmic authorities manifested more fully into their dimensional space, their energy forms becoming more solid and defined. Elena realized she was witnessing something that had probably never happened before. Cosmic beings taking direct action within human reality. Very well. The Cosmic Council hereby authorizes Emergency Protocol 7 Alpha for the joint stabilization of dimensions 477 Alpha and 477 Beta. Dr. Elena Vasquez of Dimension Alpha will serve as primary coordinator. Dr. Elena Vasquez Prime of Dimension Beta will serve as secondary coordinator. Elena felt a strange tingling sensation as cosmic authority was officially invested in her. Suddenly, she could perceive quantum structures across multiple dimensions simultaneously, and her understanding of dimensional mechanics expanded exponentially. The quantum stabilization must begin immediately, the cosmic spokesperson continued. You have access to cosmic-level quantum manipulation tools for the duration of this emergency. Use them wisely. We have not out. Elena's monitoring equipment transformed before her eyes, evolving into something that could manipulate quantum structures across dimensional boundaries. She could see Elena Prime's equipment undergoing similar transformations. Elena Prime, coordinate your teams to the positions we discussed. Elena called out. We need to create quantum anchor points at all 6 locations simultaneously. Over the next 3 hours, Elena coordinated the most complex dimensional engineering project in human history. Teams of scientists from both realities worked together, using cosmic-enhanced equipment to weave new quantum structures that would stabilize both dimensions, while preventing further cascade failures. Agent Morrison's teams provided security and logistical support, while Keeper Aldrich translated cosmic instructions that came through the enhanced communication systems. Elena watched her monitors display quantum engineering diagrams that were being drawn by cosmic intelligences billions of years old. The Amazon team reported first success, establishing a quantum anchor that immediately began reducing dimensional stress in the surrounding area. The Antarctica teams from both realities managed to synchronize their efforts despite working in parallel dimensions, creating a stabilization field that stretched across both realities simultaneously. But it was the Switzerland operation that proved most critical. Elena and Elena Prime worked together, their enhanced equipment allowing them to weave quantum threads between their realities that would permanently link their dimensional stability systems. It's working, Elena announced as the quantum cascade readings began to reverse across all monitoring stations. Dimensional stress is decreasing in both realities. Elena Prime's voice carried a mixture of relief and wonder. Our vacuum bubbles are stabilizing. The quantum collapse has stopped. The cosmic authorities observed the stabilization process with what Elena could only interpret as satisfaction. The emergency phase has concluded successfully. Both realities now exist within a linked stability matrix that will prevent future quantum collapse scenarios. Elena realized that this meant her reality and Elena Prime's reality were now permanently connected in ways that would take years to fully understand. What happens now? Elena asked. Now you learn to live as linked dimensions, the cosmic spokesperson replied. Limited, authorized exchange between your realities is permitted for ongoing stabilization maintenance. Dr. Vasquez Prime and her team will return to their dimension, but communication and cooperation between realities will continue under cosmic supervision. Elena Prime smiled for the first time since their communication began. Thank you, Elena. You saved both our realities. We saved them together, Elena replied. And I think this is just the beginning. As the cosmic authorities began to withdraw their direct presence, Elena noticed that some of the enhanced equipment remained active. The quantum monitoring systems now showed readings from both realities, and she realized that her role as dimensional coordinator would be permanent. Keeper Aldrich approached her with one of his books, this one showing new text that was writing itself as cosmic law adapted to accommodate the unprecedented situation. You've just helped establish new cosmic precedent, he told her. Emergency dimensional assistance with joint stabilization has never been attempted before. The Treaty of Convergence is literally being rewritten to account for what you've accomplished. Elena looked at her monitors, which now displayed a view of dimensional space that included both realities. She could see quantum pathways connecting the two Earths, creating a stability network that was stronger than either reality had possessed alone. Agent Morrison approached her workstation. Dr. Vasquez, I think you should know that similar quantum instabilities are being detected in other dimensional clusters. The cosmic authorities are requesting your consultation on potential stabilization projects involving other realities. Elena smiled as she realized that her career in quantum research had just evolved into something she could never have imagined. As the coordinator for interdimensional stability, she would be working with cosmic authorities to prevent dimensional collapse scenarios across multiple realities. The alarms that had started everything were now silent, replaced by the gentle hum of quantum stabilization systems that linked two Earths in a bond that would last for eternity. Elena Prime's final message came through the communication array as her team prepared to return to their reality. Elena, when we first planned this crossing, we thought we were just trying to save our world. But I think we've actually begun something much more important. We've proven that realities can work together instead of just existing in isolation. Elena nodded, watching the quantum pathways pulse with energy that connected not just two realities, but two versions of human potential. The heavens had decreed that humans must never be summoned across dimensions without authorization, but they had never forbidden humans from earning that authorization through cooperation and wisdom. As the portal closed and Elena Prime returned to her reality, Elena began her new work as guardian of the dimensional bridges that would ensure both Earths would thrive in their linked futures. The alarm had been triggered, the cosmic law had been challenged, but in the end, it was human ingenuity and cooperation that had found a solution that even the cosmic authorities hadn't anticipated. The future stretched before them, filled with possibilities that spanned multiple realities, and the promise that humanity, in all its dimensional variations, would never face extinction alone again.